For our speaker, Kristi Burchfiel, that was the moment when everything in her life changed. Kristi grew up in Valley Center, Kansas, and received her bachelor's and master's degrees from Oklahoma Baptist University in Shawnee, Oklahoma. She has been married to her husband, Dee Burchfiel, for 20 years, and they have 2 children, Rebecca and Andrew. They currently make their home in Wichita, Kansas, where Dee is the pastor of a local church. Kristi is the author of Bible studies and devotionals and enjoys speaking for a variety of groups and retreats. She has published 14 books focused on helping others learn and apply God's Word in their life. And I know she brought some tonight. Kristi is here today to share her story and to challenge us to reevaluate our plans for our life. Because you never know when those best laid plans may go awry. Please welcome Kristi tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This round, y'all were smart. You gave me a leash. It's always a good thing. I can wander occasionally when I don't have one, so it's good to stay focused, right? Well, talking about love and Valentine's Day, I always like to talk about my husband. I mentioned that his name is D, and it is just the letter D. A, B, C, D. And, you know, he always got a lot of comments about that and everything growing up. They used to ask him, they said, what, are you the 4th child? You know, A, B, C, D. And he would laugh and he would say, oh, no, I was the 23rd, Z, Y, X. And so we had a lot of fun with that growing up. In reality, he's an only child. So when we got married, then I had my new last name, Burchfiel, which nobody could pronounce and nobody could spell. And so it became a very interesting transition to this. So I would try to spell it for people, and it would be Burchfiel. And they're like, oh, Field. I'm like, no, there's no D on the end. I married the D. So that's where the D went, anytime anybody wonders of my name. So I married the D. So we've been married for 20 years now, which is really, really exciting. And I wanted to have a chance to come and I appreciate the opportunity just to share with you guys a little bit about my story and kind of my journey. And I have a confession to make to you guys. I am a planner. I'm a planner. Do I have any other fellow planners in the house that can say, yes, I'm a planner? Yeah. You know who you are. And if you don't, the people next to you are nudging you and elbowing you. And if you are not the planner, I guarantee you that you are either married to the planner, have the planner as a child, brother, sister, friend, next door neighbor, somebody that grabs you and takes you along and says, guess what, we're going to go do it. I got it all planned out. And so you all know people like that in your lives. And even if you are not the planner, I'm guessing that all of you guys have some sort of goal or idea of kind of the general direction you're headed when you get up in the morning and had things. I mean, I'm pretty sure that none of you ended up here today because you were driving by and were like, oh, I bet they have food there. So I'm guessing that you probably figured out some way to be here tonight. So I grew up a planner. I blame it on my parents. It's all their fault. Because that's what we do nowadays, right? We blame our parents. But my dad is a CPA, and my mom is his office manager, so we have very analytical people, and I grew up as the child who could have charts and graphs and things where I could show people, say, yes, if I do this, and if I add a little bit more here, and if I work really hard over here, and that's why I need a bigger allowance. And you know, it worked. It was great. I learned very early on that if I could have a good, thought-out plan, with lots of really good ideas and reasons behind why I needed to do what I was doing, it would work out and people would go along with me. So I did what every good planner does. I planned my life, right? Because we're good at that. So I did. I'm like, okay, I am going to graduate from high school. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a career. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to be happy. Right? Great plan. I'm a planner, let's be honest. There was a whole lot more steps under each one of those besides that. But that was the highlights, right? So I did. I graduated from Valley Center High School, a little suburb north of Wichita. And I decided I'm going to go off, I'm going to see the world, and I made it all the way to Oklahoma. And that's where I went to college, was in Oklahoma. And while I was at college, I met my husband. So that was a twofer. So while I was there and graduated from college, we started working. My husband was a pastor, so he started pastoring some churches. And I went and got my career started, got a job, was working. Great. So I'm okay, mental checklist, right? High school, check. College, husband, check, check. And then we have career, check. Okay, kids. No kids. Still no kids. No kids. So, okay, let's go to the doctor. Let's go see what's going on, see if we can figure out why no kids. So we did. We went to the doctor, we got some tests done, and I'm at work one day, and while I'm at work, I get a phone call, and it says, "Hey, Kristi, this is your doctor, and I just called to let you know I got your test results in. You and your husband are never going to be able to have kids, but if there's anything else I can help you with, please let me know." I'm really not exaggerating that phone call very much, unfortunately. And shockingly, I never called him back. So, have y'all ever been around a planner when their plan falls apart? It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. And depending on how cherished that plan is, how well thought out, how desperately people are looking forward to that plan, it can be absolutely devastating. And that's where I was. I was at that place where I was just completely at a loss. I really didn't know what to do. And my husband's still a pastor. I'm still a pastor's wife. So I'm still at church on Sunday morning, shaking hands with people. "Hi, how are you? I'm great. I'm fantastic. I'm lying through my teeth at you right now." And because that's what I felt like I had to do. I felt like I had to put on this happy face and be this person that I just didn't feel like I was right then. And so while I was going through this and just completely overwhelmed and overcome with emotion, one of the other things that my parents instilled in me is going to church. I started going to church 9 months before I was born, and I've been a regular attender ever since. And so it's one of those things that I knew that the answers could be found in the Bible, but I also knew that I was mad and angry. And I have really real conversations with God because He knows what I'm thinking anyway. So I just figure I might as well just say what I think. So my conversations with God around this time kind of went along the lines of this. Okay, God, so this was not the plan, and it's all your fault, and you need to fix it. Now, and I did not get struck by lightning, I'm very happy to report, but nothing changed either. So while I was going through this, and I thought, okay, I know that the answers are in the Bible, but I also know that I'm really mad. So, okay, God, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal, because that always works out really well, let me tell you. I'll make you a deal. I will read the Bible, and I will read and search for the answers, but I'm not going to make it easy for you, because I'm really mad. So I'm going to find the saddest, most depressing book in the Bible, and I'm going to read that there. So I did. I found the book of Ecclesiastes, and I started reading that book. And for those of you who may not have spent just a ton of time in that book, because it's not really on the most preached out of message books of the Bible, it starts off meaninglessness of meaninglessness. Everything is meaningless. And I remember thinking, yep, that's how I feel right there. And so while I was working through that, I just remember thinking, okay, God, fine, here I go, I'm going to read. I spent the next 6 months reading that book over and over again. I studied that book. I took 85 pages worth of notes in that book, and it was like, I'm going to figure out what God has to say to me here, and I'm not leaving it until He does. And while I was there, I learned a great many things about the book of Ecclesiastes. It was written by a man by the name of Solomon. Now, Solomon was king. He's king over Israel, kind of the golden age of Israel. So he had everything. He was king, so obviously he was powerful. He was very wise. The Bible talks about how he had asked God for wisdom and was granted that. He was rich. And this was, like I said, the golden age. So there are verses that explain that silver wasn't even really considered valuable in that time because it was so plentiful. So they were very, very wealthy. All the things that we think of today might be successful. Power, money, position, wisdom. He had all of that. And yet he got to the end of his life, and he looked back on it, and he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. Meaninglessness of meaninglessness. Everything is meaningless. He tried everything to find fulfillment and purpose and a sense of meaning in his life. And what he ultimately came to the conclusion of, he actually wrote in the last chapter, Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13 says, "Now all has been heard, and here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments." Fear God and keep his commandments. I remember reading that and thinking, okay, so put God first, fear him, reverence him, respect him, come to him first. Oh, I might have missed that part. Because I was so busy making my plans that I do what so many of us get caught up doing sometimes. Okay, here's my plans, I've written my plans. God, bless my plans. We gotta go. And that was what I had done. I had made my plans and I had brought them and said, please bless them. And I said, okay, God. So I messed that up. But I'm here now. I'm coming to you first. Now what? And he led me to a man by the name of Jeremiah in the Old Testament. Now, Jeremiah was a prophet, which is a fancy name for a mailman. Yeah. And you asked me about that? Prophets, okay, they get a message from God, they go deliver the message. They get a message from God, they go deliver the message. They were mailmen. So he could get messages, and he went off and he delivered those messages, and it was great. He had a very long ministry, 40 years. 40 years that he delivered God's message to the people of Israel. You know how many converts he had in those 40 years? How many people came running down the aisle of the first church of Jeremiah to say, you're right, I absolutely believe this. Yeah, how many? Zero. None. Not a single. 40 years. I don't know about you guys. I get frustrated if I have to say the same thing to somebody more than about 3 times. I cannot even begin to imagine a 40-year ministry and nothing in the way of response. How in the world did he even keep going? How did he keep on? How did that even work? Well, I realized that God gave him messages too. Yeah. It wasn't just messages for him to give to other people. God gave him messages. And he gave him a message in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." You know what I read there? God is a planner. I was so excited. He's a planner. I can relate. He's got this plan. I like this plan. This is a good plan. God, hope, prosperity, future. I like all of this. So here's my email. And if you will just send me that plan, we will hop to it. We will make it happen. Do you know I have yet to get an email? Still have not received that. So I'm thinking, okay, God, well, what do I do now? If I'm supposed to have this plan, you have this plan. I like this plan. It sounds really good. Hope, prosperity, future, all things really nice. What am I supposed to do now? So the next thing he did is he took me to a man by the name of Job. Now I always pause there for a moment because there's a general groan, usually, that goes around the audience when I mention Job's name, because Job has a reputation. And I knew it from growing up in church and having heard the stories, and it went something along these lines. So, Kristi's paraphrase. We have book of Job, God, Satan, together, having a conversation. God says to Satan, hey, check out my man Job. He's pretty awesome. And Satan's like, well, have you seen all that stuff you've given him? He's got all these flocks and all these fields and all these people, kids. I mean, he's got so much stuff. Of course he's going to bless you and praise you. Look what you've done for him. If you took all that away, he would curse you. So God says, okay, try it. So he does. In the span of 24 hours, Job loses everything. crops burned to the ground or pillaged, all of his flocks stolen or killed, his children all killed, 24 hours gone. Still, Job praises God. God and Satan, back together. God says, what did I tell you? It's my man Job. And Satan's like, okay, but God, he still feels good. You know, I mean, when you have your health and you can feel good, you can still, if you took his health away, he would curse you. So God says, okay, you can do anything you want to him except kill him. Sure enough, Job breaks out from head to toe in painful boils and sores, can't hardly even move to the point where he's sitting in the dirt. Still, Job praises God. Now, I remember hearing that story as a child, and growing up thinking about this and thinking, wow, super Christian. That's amazing. He didn't even have the book of Job to read to get him through while he was going through all of this. How in the world? But you know, as I was going back through this, I realized what I just shared with you is the first 2 chapters of a book that is 42 chapters long. There is so much more to this story. And even though Job never curses God, he absolutely asks, why? Why, God? Why are you allowing this to me? Why do I have to go through this? Why am I experiencing the pain? Why is it unfair? Why, God? All the things that I was asking at that point. And I know when we get in situations like that and we're sitting there and we're thinking, why? A lot of times we feel like, or at least I felt, like my prayers didn't even reach the ceiling. And God doesn't hear and God doesn't answer. But you know, God answers Job. And it's not a little answer either. It takes him about 3 chapters when you read it. And so, I'm not going to read the whole 3 chapters to you right now, don't worry. You can do that on your own. But basically, when you start looking at the answers, God comes to Job and says, okay, Job, I know you're upset and I know you're frustrated, so let me ask you a couple of things. Where were you when I hung the stars in the sky? Job, where were you when I taught the eagles how to fly? Where were you, Job, when I told the ocean it can go this far and no further? Where were you? The translation? I'm God, and you're not. Translation for me? He's God, and I'm not. He sees a far bigger picture of the world, of the plans, of the creation that I could even dream of seeing. And there comes a point where I have to recognize that I can trust him because he sees the big picture. And he truly understands what's better for me than even I know for myself. And as I came to that, I realized that yes, I need to come to God first for everything that I have and everything that I come to and everything that I do needs to come to him first. And yes, he has a plan for me. And it's a good plan. A plan for a hope and a future. And no, I don't always get to know what that plan is beforehand. Or what those steps are to get through that plan in advance. I remember looking at God and thinking, okay, God, so what do I do with this? Because if I don't have any idea what I'm supposed to do, how do I even, when I get up in the morning, how do I even know what that day should look like? How do I even know what I should be doing? You know, there's a verse for that too. In Psalms 119, there's a verse that says, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And I remember thinking, a lamp. This is long before the days of mag light flashlights and LED lights and things that you can click on and see for the next 5 miles down the road, right? This was a candle that you held in front of you. as a lantern. How far could you see on one of those? You got what, 2 steps, maybe 3? And it's all dark and fuzzy past that? How do you see further down the path? You have to take a step. As you take a step, the next little bit is illuminated. And then the next. And then the next. And that's what God taught me. Is that all I am responsible for doing is taking the next step in obedience to Him. And if I take that next step, He will show me the next step. And then the next step. And before I even realize it, He's taken me down a path that it was better than I could have possibly even imagined. But I never would have chosen on my own. And His path is not always easy. It's not always fun all the time. But it's always the best. So as I got to this place, and a lot of this took place in 2002, so several years ago, when I kind of realized this place, I got to that where I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I have to be able to be okay with this. I have to be able to trust that the God who created me, who created the universe, who sees the big picture more than I could possibly see, this is according to His plan. And it's okay, and I can trust Him. And when I got to that place, my husband and I both got to the place where, okay, God, if we never have kids, okay. That's okay. And we were both very okay with that. And we got to a place where we're just going to take one step at a time. We're going to take the next step and the next step, and we were open to any and all options or possibilities that He may lay in front of us. Was circumstances and God's planning, not my planning, God's planning would have it. 4 years later, I gave birth to my daughter through the miracle of modern medicine. And then 2 years after that, gave birth to my son, who was just a miracle. I really want to call that doctor back. Decided I probably shouldn't. But, even if that hadn't have been His plan, because like I said, we were open to any and all options, and that just happened to be the path that He led us down. When I look back on that and I think, if I had those kids back in 2002, when I had planned to, right, I would have thought, look at what I have created. Look at what we have made. Look at how wonderful this is, and look at what I have done. Yeah. Whereas now I realize and recognize my kids for what they truly are, which is just a gift from God. For as long as He allows me the opportunity to have them. And that has become something that I have to remind myself of every day. Because I continue to plan. God made me to be able to plan and to analyze things. And there's nothing wrong with that. He made me that way. He just wants to make sure that what I'm doing is in line with what He's doing. And sometimes I need a reminder of that. All the time, because I've had people who we start talking about this path and how do I get on this path and the next step. Well, I can tell you the very first step on the path has to do with the relationship that you guys have with Jesus Christ. That is how you take the first step on the path. Because you see, it didn't matter if it was about kids or not kids or having plans or graduating or all those things. It didn't matter. I mess up. I do wrong things. I'm not perfect. It was only a matter of time before my plan fell apart. And every single one of us, if your plans have not fallen apart yet, just wait. It's coming. I'm just going to guarantee you that one. It's going to come. But if that's something where I know that I couldn't have had the perfect plans, and I needed something to save me from myself, along with all the other things that I do wrong. And that's where Jesus Christ came in. He came and He lived as God's Son. He lived the life, the perfect life that I couldn't possibly live. He died the death that I deserved for payment for the things that I had done wrong. And God raised him from the dead, victorious, to live again, knowing that by me putting my trust into him, I can live each day victorious as well. And I can take those steps in obedience and victory, knowing that he's the one that is right there beside me, leading me and guiding me to take those steps. Now, some people, if you go to church or things, you've heard phrases like, I asked Jesus into my heart and I got saved, or things like that. And sometimes people have trouble understanding what those phrases actually even mean, or what they're responsible, how does that even work? And truly, the way I kind of conceptualize it to myself is about, I have these plans. They're broken, they're messed up, and they're falling apart. And because Jesus is willing to exchange his perfect plans for mine. And I can have his plan for my life and have him to live in my heart and to live through me, his plans. That's what that first step is on the path. Now, I've had several people who've come to me later and said, oh, yeah, Kristi, I exchanged my plans for his plans, and I asked him to be a part of my life and to lead my life like 95 years ago. And I did that, and I think that's fantastic. And all that tells me is how long you've been on the path. It does not tell me how far down the path you've gone. Because so many times, because I do this, you're on the path, you're taking a step, ooh, shiny. And we do. We get all excited about the shiny thing over here, and it's fantastic, and oh my goodness. And we become distracted from the steps that God has us taking. What's so amazing about that is that it doesn't matter how long we get distracted by the shiny things. God is still waiting right there for us to come back, to say that we're sorry, and to follow in his next step in obedience. So even if you've been on the path, maybe you've gotten distracted by the shiny things that pop up in life, and you need to take an opportunity to go back and get focused on what is the next step that God has me taking. Because I guarantee you, the steps that God has me taking are generally things that are uncomfortable and scary and a little bit outside of what I would normally have chosen for myself. Because he does that to grow me, and he does that to make me more like him. It's a chance for me to become better. It's a chance for me to become, to trust him, to show that he can lead me through wherever he wants me to go. Now, wherever you're at today, like I said, I know for me, for my journey, that's where that led me. And so now I have my 9-year-old and my 11-year-old, and being able to see and to work with them and seeing how God is using them to continue in their path, on their journey, as they learn to trust him. It gives me so much amazing hope to know that he does have a plan for each and every one of us. There's not one of us that he's forgotten. There's not one of us that he's thought, oh, well, it's not as important for them to have a plan. There's nobody like that. Every single one of us, God has a plan for. And just like it says in Jeremiah, a plan to prosper you and give you a hope and a future. So as we kind of wrap up tonight, I want to share with you guys, if you have never taken that first step on the path, if you've never had an opportunity to ask Jesus Christ to become part of your life so that you can walk on the path in obedience to him, to ask him to forgive you for the things that you've messed up, and to accept his perfect plan in exchange. I'm going to pray a prayer here soon, and I'm going to ask you just to pray alongside with me quietly, just that you would be able to have an opportunity to do that. But I'm also going to encourage you, if you've been on the path a while, or even not very long, but you've gotten distracted by the shiny things off to the side, use this as an opportunity to refocus yourself. What is it that God is having you to do? What is the step that God wants you to take next? Because there is nothing like being able to take the steps that he has for you, even when they're hard and even when they're scary, because his best is so much better than anything that I could have possibly ever imagined or planned for myself. So let's take a moment and let's pray together, ladies. And again, if you have never had an opportunity to ask Jesus to come into your heart, to exchange your plans, your broken plans for his, I encourage you just to pray this to yourself. Father, I had a plan and a goal, but I failed. I admit that I'm not perfect, but you are. I believe that your Son, Jesus Christ, died as part of your plan for me. Please forgive me for my failures. Please come into my heart. I will follow your plan for me for this point forward, even when I don't understand it, because I trust in you. Thank you for saving me, for leading me, for giving me a hope and a future. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Now at your tables, in those plastic containers, they have comment cards. And I do have one. They look something very similar to this. I know there's multiple colors of them. Gray. I've seen gray, orange, pink, and green at different places that I have been. So there are multiple colors floating around from different places, but it all very, very similar stuff to it. And as you guys get those in your table, Bruce just kind of passes these around. I'm going to ask you guys to fill these out and to hand these to me as you get ready to leave this evening. But as you fill these out, the top name, phone number, email, I can't help you with that. That part you're going to have to do on your own. The rest of that, there's some check boxes there. The first one we'll come back to. But after that, next one says, I would like to learn more about what it means to have a relationship with Christ. Sometimes when you hear people talk about things, you end up with questions. You think, you know what, I'm interested, but I don't really understand. I want to ask questions. If that describes you, mark that box. There are ladies here who would love nothing more than to be able to chat with you and discuss your questions with you. So if that describes you, mark that. There's a couple, I'm a Christian and would like to grow more in my faith, or I'm interested in a small group or Stonecroft Bible study. So what I can tell you about walking that path, it's hard, I think I mentioned that, and it's not easy and it's easily distracted. So what I have found, and one reason why I write Bible studies, is because when you're walking the path with other people together in a group, it's a whole lot easier. You get a whole lot further and you get a whole lot less distracted. If you are not involved in a small group or someone who can kind of give you that encouragement, please, I beg you to consider it, because it's such a great opportunity. So definitely consider that. There's another box on there that would say, I would like to learn more about this group and opportunities to be involved. Knowing stuff, good. Doing stuff, better. So if you know things but don't do anything with what you know, it's not really doing you a whole lot of good. So if you have an opportunity, there's always opportunities to serve through these groups and others. Find ways to get involved. So if that describes you, I would encourage you to mark that. There's a section for comments. This is the spot where you get to write the things that were absolutely wonderful for this evening. And if there's anything that you think could be wonderfuler, we recommend that you put that on too. Because I know the ladies work really hard to put these events on for you guys every month and want to be able to provide just a great opportunity for you guys. So that brings us back to that first box. It says, I just made the decision today to receive Jesus Christ as my Savior. If you prayed that prayer with me for the very first time, then I would encourage you to do, mark that box. Now, just like I said, when you take a step, more gets passed out. What I would ask you, if you mark that box, fold your comment card in half. So if you mark that top box that you prayed that prayer, fold your comment card in half. Because that's a signal to me to give you the next step, which is called, a little book here we have called New Beginning. It just gives some more information, some more details about what comes next. What are some of the things that you can be thinking about and be a part of? It just gives you the next lit path down the path that you're on at this point. So again, if that describes you, just fold that in half, and I have some copies of that I can give to you. It has been my absolute privilege to be with you guys tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to come and to share with you just my journey and what I've gone through and how God has taken that and has used that through me. I can tell you, speaking and writing and things like that, that was not the plan at any point when I got started with this. So that's definitely something that God has brought about that I wouldn't trade for the world, because I have the opportunity to be able to share with you guys and hopefully help impact you guys to have a closer walk with Him too. So my prayer for you guys is that you would continue to be seeking His path for you and His plans, no matter where they take you. So thank you guys so much.
Well, Kristi, you're fantastic.